I used to think it would take 30 years before I could start living the life I want.
I lived my whole life on someday Someday I'll take my family to Mexico and...
We're just guys who want to thrive in business, but just as much, we want to thrive in our families, in our marriage. We want to design the life that we want now, and we realize we can have it. But first, a big announcement. Drum roll, please. Hey, so, Michael, Jamie, and I, when we sat in Coronado over a year ago and had this discussion about EFM and just the uniqueness of this brand, this idea of living life as entrepreneurial men, we put a list together and a mission and a vision of what we want this to look like and people we want involved. We identified just a couple guys. These are mentors of ours. They're people we look up to. They're great examples of this kind of life. Boy, we were hesitant to even approach them for a while, but Michael, we did with one. What happened?
Oh man, I'm giddy right now. I'm actually a little nervous too. So we brought this guy in hoping that we could get him on our show for about 10 minutes so he could just share a nugget of wisdom that would add a ton of value to you. Throughout our conversation, we landed on this idea that he might actually be a part of this EFM crew. One of the partners, one of the people that's doing this whole life with us. And we were just blown away by that. We look up to this guy, the way that he treats his marriage, the way that he cares for his children, the way that he does business, the way he walks out his faith, all these different areas which we really value here at EFM. This guy hit them all. And we were just happy to be on the call with him.
We've all done our coach training through his institute. It's the largest Christian coaching school in the world. It's all virtual. That's how me, Michael, and Chris work with our clients one-on-one. We have the inside joke that he's the godfather of Christian coaching. He doesn't. He'd rather have us say that he's the father of Christian coaching.
Yeah, so we are excited. Chris McCluskey, president of Professional Christian Coaching Institute, to join and be involved. I mean, he is going to be the mentor that we all need. He's going to bring so much value and flavor to the discussions we're having. He's on the same path as we are. He might be a couple steps ahead, but we are going to just get him involved, and you'll see more of him and listen to more of him. One thing we talked about is getting Chris involved in what we call the McCluskey mentor moments. We're going to hear from him later today on this episode as he wraps up this conversation, what it's about. He's just going to bring his wisdom, his perspective on these conversations we're having.
If you've ever watched 60 Minutes, it'll be like when Andy Rooney steps in and you hear that ticking and he closes it out
right.
and drops this bomb of truth.
I'm excited. I've seen him. Chris performs theater and does all this other stuff. So I'm excited to see him in a different element than I do in PCCI.
PCCI is the largest Christian coaching organization in the world. It has an impact in over 40 countries. Over 4,000 students have gone through that. And if you do the math and talk about the number of clients those coaches have coached, the number of men and women, spouses, kids that have been impacted, that's a lot of lives. And we are just thrilled that he's part of this. We'll hear from him later. Let's go back to this conversation. How to not wait to live the life you want. There's a quote that I was reminded of when we were talking about this earlier by Mark Twain. And it's this quote we've probably all seen. And he talks about how 20 years from now, you will be more disappointed by the things you didn't do than by the ones you did do. So throw off the bow lines, sail away from the safe harbor, catch the trade winds in your sails, explore, dream, and discover. That's what we want to talk about with this idea of designing a life focused in this American culture of, this is what retirement's going to be like. Why wait for that? Jamie, Michael, what do you think about this topic?
Ooh.
Go ahead, Jamie.
Oh, man, I just get this pit in my stomach. The fear of missing out. 50 years from now to be lying there and have all these dreams that didn't happen, and I was just too afraid to take action. That's probably like the biggest thing that just gets me sick in my stomach to think about. Am I the only person like that? Are you guys?
No, man, but it's hard, right? Because we've been fed this idea for a long time that that's the way you do it in America. You bear down for a couple decades and do your hard work, save up enough money, and then when you're old and withered and limping around, then you can enjoy your life. I'm not signing up for that one.
Yeah, I don't want to be old and withered.
Well, you're going to be someday, Jamie.
That's what we're fed, right? I mean, gosh, if you think about it from school age, it's do well in school, get into the college you want to, do well there, get the job you want, find the girl you want, get the house with the white picket fence, do well and move up for 30 or 40 years. You might have enough to eke out a few vacations in your
finally
lifetime.
You get to go to Florida and play some shuffleboard with some of your old friends at the community center, right?
But don't exert yourself too much because it's bad for your cardiac condition.
Exactly.
So what's an example of how you can start now? So clearly there's some things, right? You have to have some finances in order. You have to have some space and margin in your life to make this happen. My good friend Michael Deutsch from Indiana has explored this idea well. So he had this dream of traveling the country in an RV and just seeing the whole country, seeing all the amazing different parts of the U.S. As we were talking together, he landed on the idea that, well, why not just try this out a little bit? Let's tease it out for a short trip to see if you really like it and see if you really know what this is all about. So he has this enormous RV. It's an awesome, awesome machine where he packs up basically everything he owns. And he just recently took a 2-week trip down to Florida. And he's taking business calls while he's sitting in his RV near the beach and making amazing memories with his family at the same time. So we got to experience that dream in a bite-sized piece right now. And he's getting to know what that's really going to be like.
He just took a step, right? And he said, hey, this is part of an ideal life that I think I want. Take a 2-week step, right? Try it out. Jamie, you guys, you do a pretty unconventional way of living. I think to most people, we love it, where you have your house on Airbnb. How's that work, and what's that allow you to do?
Well, it allows for us to do a lot of things. It's definitely not easy. We've gotten better at doing it, but I want to back up a couple steps here because it was probably 5 or 6 years ago that me and Ruthie paid off our debt. We started asking ourselves what we kind of want to do when we grow up. And we were sitting there in Quebec in Lac du Cerf in the middle of nowhere. And we were reading this book by Bob Goff called Love Does. We had this thing in our hearts that, back to the Someday Isle, someday wouldn't it be cool to buy some like really old home with 20 rooms and that could be our retirement? Well, why couldn't we do like a 5% version of what we were going to wait 40 years to do? Michael McGreevy actually plays a little part in this story. Michael remodeled this room in the attic of our Colonial Revival, a 1902 house in Buffalo, New York. And we just listed it on Airbnb. We said, what the heck? And that just led to so many interesting conversations with people all over the world. It opened up so much passion in our life where we had people invite us to their countries. We still have people that we want to visit. And then when we moved to Nashville, we rented out our 3,000 square foot house and we'll just go and travel. Like we went to Mexico for almost 2 months last year. People say that's so cool that you want to rent out your house. I don't really want to, but I want to do what it makes possible. That all started by saying, what if we could do 3% of something that we would put off for 40 years?
Yeah. No, you know what I like about that, Jamie? You just said it there at the end too, is you and Ruthie sat down and said, okay, what does this ideal life look like? And you said, if we did 5% of that, could we do that now?
Or 1%.
It started with a remodeled room in a small house, and you made it happen, and that afforded you more income, more time flexibility to go do these other travels. Then you got to a new location. You've got a fantastic house that we've all been able to enjoy together. And now, like, I mean, gosh, you were in Mexico. Did you apply for like residency down there? Because like you were there for like half the year last year, I think. I don't know.
Almost, yeah.
But you've been able to do that. So you took that 5%. I guarantee you that number has grown.
In 3 weeks, we're going to Paris. So we got somebody coming here for 4 days, and we're going to Paris. We're taking Cecilia there for, like, again, Bob Goff's been a huge mentor, but like the 10-year-old adventure that we all do with our kids, Cecilia wanted to go to Paris, and like that's a lot of money, but we rented our house. Chris, I want to bring this back to what you and Alicia did a couple years ago, where you had this idea that the Someday Isle thing, right? Someday we'll be snowbirds and we could have a second house. I saw you guys do that in your mid to late 30s, just buy a second house and try that out. It didn't work out the way that you wanted it to, but you didn't fail. It's always good because we're kind of failing forward. Could you talk a little bit real quick about what you guys did with the Palm Springs house?
Yeah. So, you know, we live here in Oregon, and as many people know, it's a little wet and gray sometimes. So coming from California and sunshine, we realized after a couple of years, you know, it would be kind of nice to go be down there every once in a while and still visit family when we wanted to. It was a good time in the market, you know, 5 years ago to buy an investment property, right? And so we said, let's do this. Let's kind of try what the snowbird lifestyle might look like. Again, having young kids, we didn't really know. We're just, like you said, kind of falling forward, and took an opportunity. And we literally had kind of option or plan A, B, and C. We're going to be snowbirds. We're going to rent it out most of the year and go down there when we can, or it's just going to be a long-term rental. And boy, it allowed us to flex and use some of these muscles that we never had. I mean, we bought it and it was a fixer. And so we went down there, we moved down there for the winter time and spent 4 months fixing it up. I mean, the first couple of weeks we're pulling carpet up and there's tack strips and like little toddlers running around. I mean, it was just a bizarre, right? But we really learned some things in the process of even just remodeling. And then we enjoyed that time period. We then rented it out and had a long-term renter there. And we kind of realized, you know what, as the kids were getting older, they wanted to be involved in sports stuff a little bit more. And they're just the reality of life and doing things in where you live. And we said, you know what, let's just leverage this to where we can, in between tenants moving in and out, we'll go down there for a few weeks or a month or 6 weeks. And so we did that for a few years, you know, and then we got to a point where we said, this is going to be a long-term rental. And then it became a little bit more of a hassle to be 800 miles away from that. And so we ended up selling it for, you know, a little profit. But it was a great experience to say, like you talked about, if this is a version of what we want a life to look like, and be able to live in different locations with these online businesses, try it out, see what happens. And, you know, we learned along the way.
What I love about both of those stories, Chris and Jamie, is that you had this big dream. You sat down with your wives and you thought about it. You put it out there. And this is where I used to get stuck, and I think a lot of people do, is they see this big dream and they see that it can't work right now. So then that's where it ends. Thud. Well, I guess we can't do it. We'll have to wait till we make more money. But what you guys did is you said, well, what can we do right now? And you took a step forward in a bite-sized piece, and it led to you learning so much, which led to that next thing that you did, which is a better version, and you continue to grow forward in that way. And I think that's a powerful point for you to hear. If you're listening, what is a bite-sized piece that you could take off of your dream right now? Another friend of mine I worked with in a coaching relationship, he's a business owner and makes his own schedule. He's a remodeler, does awesome work. His customers really love him because he treats them really well. But he still feels like he has to work at least that 40 to 50-hour work week. He hasn't given himself permission to step away from that and create some space to take some bites out of that bigger dream that he has. So if you're in a situation where you are running your own business, you make your own schedule, give yourself permission to carve out a little space. What that might look like is, hey, take a Friday and say, on Fridays, I'm going to explore this dream. And Monday through Thursday, I'm going to work my tail off like I always do. And hey, my customers will understand. I might actually be a better person that serves them if I'm taking care of myself and pursuing what makes me come alive.
I like that example. So pain point for me on that one is realizing a few years back, I went through the E-Myth again. As an entrepreneur, as a business founder, I grew my first company and realized after reading that book, I just created a job for myself. I just created a really efficient, productive, well-paying job. But if I weren't in front of the computer and on the phone, typical business hours, the sales weren't going to happen. And I quickly realized, like, okay, I've got to, if I want my life to look like this, where I've got more time and freedom, where I look at my family and my kids' lives and how they're growing into their own beings, and I want to be part of their activities during the day, how can I design that first and then say, where can I fit in some work hours here and there to help with this kind of lifestyle? And so, last year was a huge pivotal year for me to say, I need to blow up the box on this company, hire well, put some systems in place, and I've completely removed myself from the day-to-day, really the week-to-week. Now I just use, through the coaching I've received in training, I use the coaching method to train my team, and they lead the rest of the team well. But it took that realization, like Michael, like you're saying, you sometimes as a business owner get strapped into this job or these hours that you created. And that's kind of the point here is what's holding you back? Jamie, when you and Ruthie were at points in your life, what was holding you back?
The marriage piece was definitely a part of it, that me and Ruthie had just weren't on the same page. When we roll up our sleeves to just get rid of our debt and work together, something happened in our marriage that had never happened. The same thing happened when we actually paid off our debt. Like, we had built such muscle of working together and building up our income, take that same skill that we've learned and do anything that we wanted together. I believe in this message that we're saying today of take small steps towards your dream, but maybe you're like me or Michael with a bunch of debt, and this is keeping you from options. For me and Ruthie, we paid off $90,000 in 3 years, a little bit less than 3 years, 30 months, and Michael did the same thing, and we got really intense. I think that's probably like the one caveat to this conversation, that maybe there's something that if you just knock out really quick, a whole bunch of options will work in your favor better if you handle that thing.
Yeah, well said, Jamie. And I had other things in addition to debt that were holding me back. I mean, just some of my daily habits, like when I got up in the morning and what my morning routine was like. Also, my income at the time. Some of these things needed to be leveled out to the point where I could even have the peace of mind to think about what I wanted my dream to be. And you might know what that is for you. You might have a big thing that's unresolved. Maybe it's a relationship that's hanging over your head, or maybe there's something in your personal life that has always been holding you back that you have to be bold and face and take a look at.
Michael, you got me thinking here that there was so much pain for me and Ruthie to kind of face that all that debt. It was really a lot of work. But one thing happened in the midst of that is that we really started dreaming. And so this thing that we thought was an obstacle was actually a situation where, like, we worked together and dreamed about what it was going to be like when we were done. And I don't think that if we would have paid off that debt in 10 years, slowly put on a payment plan and just sort of like launched our dream, like, I don't think we'd be doing hardly any of the stuff that we're doing today. That has been incredible. What happened when we did that was amazing. Like, the amount of conversations that I remember buying all this wine that we liked and putting it in that glass shelf. And every time we paid off a debt, we had like that little date and we talked about like what we were going to do and when we were done with it. Those conversations on those dates that we had where we celebrated those milestones of paying off a credit card, or it's like, that's when we said, like, we could move somewhere else, that we felt like God was putting in we just started asking ourselves different questions and dreaming because we were cleaning up the mess of what we had done when we weren't living on a plan.
Yeah. So I heard you say a couple things there, Jamie. I mean, you guys both just took those baby steps toward your ideal life, right? You envisioned that together. You kind of had a plan of what that could look like. And then you realized what was holding you back, and you just looked it in the face and you said, let's come up with a plan together that got you on the same page, improved your marriage relationship, your team was then on the same page to move in that right direction. And now it's like you're moving the needle in so many areas of your life, creating and living, I mean, actively living that life that you want to now. I mean, Michael and I joke, it's like, where in the world is Jamie this week? Because he's probably off in Cuba or Paris or Mexico or whatever. But man, you're a great example. A great example of that.
Thanks.
So, yeah, I mean, this is all part of it. Jamie and Michael, we've talked about this, is taking these steps now for your ideal life. Have that conversation with your spouse. What does your dreams look like in the future? And what are some steps you can take now to realize that? And then look at what is holding you back. Literally, is it debt? Is it some issues in your past or marriage you've got to really sit down and talk through? And this is where we just want to land this plane and turn it over for this great guy that we introduced you to at the front end of this call, and just have this McCluskey moments to help capture what we are talking about here. So Chris, take it away.
Guys, nothing like a little bit of intimidation here, right? Like the big drum roll and the wind up. Boy, this guy's amazing. I don't know who he is. It's great to be on here with you guys. And you all know what your listeners need to hear. And that is that the reason that I so instantly just jumped at the opportunity to be part of this with you is because you all share the heart that I have for business, sure, but for being a husband and being a father and glorifying God through the way that we steward these lives that he's blessed us with, and all that those lives could be if we would steward them well and all. You guys share that heart. That's what rocks my world, and that's what made me want to be a part of this. So I was praying about this right before today's call, and I'm not going to say the Lord gave me this metaphor because I'm not sure he watches television, but the metaphor that came to my mind is Cheers. Remember the old sitcom Cheers?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Okay, like the music starts up and everybody knows your name. That's where you want to be. So you guys are like Sam and Woody and Cliff and Norm, okay? Like Norm! Having a beer and talking about life and sharing life together. And I get to be now like Frasier, okay? I'm coming in. Maybe after everything's gotten rolling along, but we're integrating a new character into the story, and what a joy, man! What a thrill to have the listeners. You don't have viewers; you have listeners that are tuning into you week after week. Thousands of people now listening to Entrepreneurial Family Man because they identify with the desire to be with others who are like-minded and like-hearted. And it may not be that we all know their names or they know each other's names, but just thinking back on your question at the beginning about, are you living the life that you really want right now? I think a question to leave all of us with, a coaching question to ponder, is for each of us, you listeners, do you know your name? Meaning everything that the name that you've been called to live out is supposed to be. And are you stepping into a living out of that calling? So there we go. I don't know if it's profound, but it means a lot to me to be on this journey with you guys, and such a joy to be able to share with your audience here.
No, that's awesome. We're so glad to have you. And that is a great, great question to really sit and ponder. And boy, what a good date night question, huh? To really talk through. I'm going to write that one down for my next date.
Oh, yeah.
But boy, we just want to leave you with that, and really, like we've talked about these points, take some of these steps now. Identify, what does that ideal life look like? Start taking those steps, just like some of these guys have talked about here. I mean, Jamie took that 3-5%, and now look where he's going. Look what he's doing. Boldly look at stuff on what could be holding you back. Face it valiantly. Be a man. Own up to where you are and where you want to be. We just appreciate you listening. We also want to share that we have a new private Facebook group. Michael, you want to talk about that?
Absolutely. So this is a place on Facebook where this is an invite-only group. So you can only be a part of this group if you were personally invited by somebody else. So if you're listening right now, you have been personally invited. you can either say, Michael, Chris, or Jamie invited me, and that'll be your secret password to get in. But this is a place where we can share in this journey together. If you're teasing out this dream and you're trying different things, take some pictures, take some videos, share that with us. Tell us what was hard. Tell us what's going well. Sharing your struggles, sharing your victories. It's a dynamic community with a lot of really solid guys who get this vision and that you can do life with. So we'd welcome you to join us there.
Thank you for listening to the Entrepreneurial Family Man Podcast. Visit efmlife.com to connect with us and others like you who are pursuing success in enterprise, family, and marriage.